In this video, we'll go through 5 key stages of how cities evolved, from primitive settlements to modern megacities. Stage 1, survival, 7000 BC. It all started long before the word city even existed. Thousands of years ago, people just needed to stick together to survive. The first Stone Age settlements had no streets, no roads, no organization whatsoever. Just simple, identical clay houses built practically wall to wall. Want to get inside? Climb up to the roof. These houses had no doors. The only entrance was a hole in the ceiling. And honestly, it was a genius security system. Pull up the ladder, and your entire city becomes an impenetrable fortress. The rooftops were basically the streets. Inside, everything was minimal. No furniture, no comfort. Just a hearth, sleeping platforms, and storage for food. Up to 10 people could live in one house, and deceased family members were buried right beneath the floor. The small gaps between houses were used as dumps and toilets. You can imagine the smell and the lack of sanitation. One of the most famous settlements of that time is Çatalhöyük. For its era, it was enormous, home to several thousand people. Residents hunted, raised animals, grew wheat, peas, and other crops. They also gathered basic resources, made stone tools, and crafted pottery. There were no complex professions, no workshops. People simply did whatever was needed to sustain life. In such harsh conditions, everyone was equal. Archaeologists have found that men and women had similar diets, spent similar amounts of time indoors and outdoors, and were buried in the same way. There was no real authority, no rulers, no laws. Everything was based on personal agreements. People knew each other, interacted constantly, and that created a sense of order. As long as the population stayed small, this worked. But as it grew, things became more complicated. Resources became scarce. Conflicts increased. Dirt, disease, and overcrowding turned into constant problems. At some point, it became clear structure and organization were needed. Stage 2, the first cities, 3000 BC. Space was no longer chaotic. People came down from the rooftops onto the ground. The first streets, squares, and markets appeared. Imagine the city of Uruk in Mesopotamia. Around 50,000 people lived there, an unimaginable megacity for its time. To keep this massive settlement from falling apart, it was divided into zones for the first time. At the center stood a colossal temple, a symbol of power. Around it were districts of craftsmen. Beyond them stretched a 9-kilometer wall. For the first time, roles became clearly divided. Some people farmed and supplied food, others became craftsmen, and others traders. Specialists emerged: potters, builders, blacksmiths. This was no longer just survival. It was a more complex economy, where everyone had a role. Trade also expanded. Markets appeared, exchange became regular, and early trade connections formed between regions. The city no longer relied only on itself, but also on external resources. To manage people and resources, authority emerged. Rulers and priests controlled order, distribution, and religious life. The first laws and rules appeared. There was a need to record information for goods, taxes, and transactions. That's how writing was born in Uruk. But new problems came with it. The population grew, density increased, and living conditions remained far from comfortable. Social inequality appeared. Some people gained more power and resources than others. Society became more complex, but also more tense. Uruk's wealth attracted enemies. Wars and conflicts became a constant background of urban life. To survive, cities had to learn how to defend themselves. Stage 3, fortification, 1000 AD. In the Middle Ages, cities turned into fortresses. High walls, towers, and gates were built. Entry was only possible through guarded gates, which were locked at night. The city became isolated from the outside world. Its main goal was simple: survive endless sieges and raids. But security came at a cost. Space inside the walls was limited. There was nowhere to expand, so the city grew upward and became more crowded. Narrow, dirty streets formed an endless stone maze. In some cities, the streets were so tight that neighbors could shake hands from opposite windows. Sunlight barely reached the ground. It was always dim and damp below. A good example is Carcassonne. Not just a city, but a full defensive system. Double walls, dozens of towers, complex entrances that could be sealed at any moment. Inside, dense buildings, narrow streets, homes, workshops, and storage spaces. Everything served one purpose: withstand a siege and keep the enemy out. Life inside was intense. Craftsmen, traders, blacksmiths, bakers, everyone had a role. Guilds appeared to regulate work and protect their members. Trade became a key part of the economy, and the city became a center of production and exchange. The cathedral or town hall remained the spiritual and administrative center. Their spires rose above the dense blocks and served as landmarks. City bells controlled time. They marked the start of work, the closing of markets, and the locking of the gates at night. Outside the walls was a completely different world. Fields, villages, and roads used by traders and armies. That's where food was produced. But it was far less protected. Villages were often the first to suffer from raids. Armies passed through, taking resources or destroying everything. In times of danger, people fled behind city walls. By the early 19th century, however, the walls that had protected cities for centuries became their biggest limitation. Powerful artillery made them useless, and the Industrial Revolution demanded space for massive factories. Cities became too cramped. To survive and grow, they had to expand outward and transform into industrial centers. Stage 4. Industrial growth, 1800. Fields were replaced by factories, warehouses, and entire districts of identical workers' housing. Cities expanded beyond their walls and began to grow at an unprecedented speed. In the early 19th century, Manchester became one of the centers of the Industrial Revolution. Hundreds of factories operated there, and the population grew rapidly. A lot of people moved there looking for work. Working conditions changed drastically. Instead of working for themselves or in small workshops, people now worked in factories. The workday could last 12 to 14 hours, and workers lived in gray slums, while wealthy owners built luxurious homes. Old crooked streets were demolished to create wide avenues for transport. Underground sewer systems, water supply, and early gas lighting appeared. Steel frames made it possible to build taller buildings, the first skyscrapers. Railways connected cities, allowing goods to travel faster and farther than ever before. The city starts to sound different, filled with a constant industrial hum. The key breakthrough was steam. Steam engines allowed factories to be built anywhere, no longer tied to rivers. But steam required coal. Factory chimneys filled the outskirts, constantly pumping out thick black smoke. The sun became a rare sight. Smog could hang over the city for weeks. Cities powered by coal and steam hit their limits. They became too dirty, too slow, and too chaotic. Humanity needed a new way of organizing itself, to connect people and avoid suffocating in the smoke. Stage 5, Systems 2000. Modern solutions came with new technologies. The city began transforming from a mass of steel into a giant living computer. Look at Tokyo. Tens of millions of people live there, yet the city doesn't fall apart. Every day, millions move with minute-level precision. Trains run on time, flows are managed, and the complex transport system works with minimal disruption. The city becomes layered. Underground, subways, utilities, tunnels. At ground level, roads, shops, residential areas. Above, overpasses, offices, housing. The city grows in all directions. Attitudes toward cities change as well. Before, people adapted to the city. Now, the city adapts to people. Parks and green zones appear, offering relief from noise and density. Public spaces, cafes, and bars develop. Bike lanes, pedestrian areas, and efficient public transport improve daily life. The city becomes not just a place to work, but a place to live. The rhythm of life changes. Everything speeds up. People travel long distances daily, living in one area, working in another, spending time in a third. The city becomes a complex network where everything is connected. It may seem like cities are now efficient, fast, and fully controlled. But this is just another stage. Technology keeps evolving. People are less tied to specific locations. Work moves online, services become more accessible, and the need to be in one place every day begins to disappear. At some point, a question arises: what should the city of the future even be? Future cities will likely look very different. Already, algorithms manage transport, distribute energy, and guide flows of people in real time. Some urban functions are moving fully into the digital space. When work, education, and communication can happen from anywhere, the city is no longer a required center of gravity. We are on the edge of major decentralization. Cities may become less dense, greener, with fewer cars and more space for people. Or the opposite may happen. We may see ultra-dense, vertical megastructures, where an entire human life, from birth to work, exists within a single building. For now, there is no clear answer. But looking at the full journey, from the tight rooftops of Çatalhöyük to the digital networks of Tokyo, one thing is clear: the city is never finished.